I, Daniel Tran, 47 years old, sit in the Nexus Innovations office in Seattle's Belltown, staring at the lines of code on my screen. They're my blood and sweat. 6 years, 45 deployed modules, 3 brutal strategic pivots, and countless sleepless nights. I turned a tangled mess of legacy code into a machine smoother than James Carter's Porsche, the CTO. But today, when I asked for a raise, James just laughed. He stood there, adjusting his tie, eyes glinting with contempt. "Come on, Daniel," he said, his voice soft like he was soothing a child. "You're indispensable. Everyone knows that. But a raise, that's for big-picture thinkers." He laughed loudly, the sound slicing into my self-respect like a knife. I didn't respond. I just looked out the window, where the lights of Seattle's skyscrapers flickered on Puget Sound, hazy in the fog. He left the meeting room, leaving behind the scent of expensive cologne and a crumpled raise proposal on the table. I'd listed everything: 45 modules, thousands of overtime hours, and a personal NDA I never signed, because James said it was just a formality. But to him, I was nothing but a coding machine, a backdrop for his flashy conference presentations.
Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video.
When I first joined Nexus, I was naive. The office was a cramped room in Capitol Hill, servers humming like they might explode. James, who worked with me at .com in the early 2000s, pulled me in. "Daniel, we'll make history," he said, raising a Starbucks coffee in a shop near Pike Place. I left a stable job at Microsoft, despite Sarah, my wife, warning, "Startups are too risky, Daniel." I wanted to prove I could build something great. Over 6 years I did. The Nexus cloud system, handling millions of daily transactions, was my brainchild. I lived through sleepless nights, missing Ethan's 12th birthday, my son, to fix bugs before investor demos. I optimized the code, made it a perfect machine, but when Nexus hit $100 million valuation, James bought a mansion in Queen Anne, while I still drove my old Honda down I-5. Today, James's laugh felt like a punch to the face. He stood, patted my shoulder like I was a good dog, and walked out, leaving humiliation clinging to me like Seattle fog. I looked at the table. My proposal sat there, useless. I'd written it carefully, listing every module, every late night, every time I saved the system from crashing. But James didn't read it. He just laughed. And that laugh reminded me, I was just a cog in his machine, nothing more. Driving home on I-5, the city lights blurred in my tired mind. Ethan was gaming in his room, headphones on, not bothering to say hi. Sarah, brewing Fin coffee, a habit she kept from our Vietnamese family, looked at me and asked, "How do they pay you for those sleepless nights, Daniel?" I didn't answer, just grabbed a beer from the fridge. Her question drilled into me. I'd sacrificed so much: evenings reading to Ethan, walks with Sarah along the river. For what? A livable salary, and James's empty promises. I thought of Tina, the young Nexus engineer who called me mentor, but got promoted for flattering James. I thought of Mark, the HR guy who whispered apologies after every denied promotion, his eyes full of guilt but no action. They knew I was exploited, but no one spoke up. Neither did I. For 6 years, I stayed silent, believing hard work would pay off. But James's laugh today shattered that illusion. In the living room, I opened my laptop, staring at Nexus's admin interface. The system ran flawlessly, mocking me. Every line of code was my blood, sweat, and nights I chose work over family. I thought of Ethan, his disappointed eyes, when I said Dad's busy for the 100th time. I thought of Sarah, who once said, "You deserve more, Daniel." For the first time I wondered, if I don't demand justice, who will? I closed the laptop, stood, and looked out the window. Seattle's streetlights flickered, whispering there was still a chance. I didn't know the next step, but a fire sparked in me, simmering but hot enough to burn everything James built on my back. I couldn't sleep that night. In the living room, I watched Ethan, my son, slumped on the couch, headphones still on, game screen flashing. Sarah, my wife, had gone to bed, leaving a thin coffee cup on the table, its aroma reminding me of mornings she tried pulling me from work obsession. I opened my laptop, not to check Nexus's system, but to dig through old folders, buried fragments of memory. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe a reason not to give up. Then in an old hard drive labeled "crap to don't delete," I found it a folder named patent_draft. I almost didn't open it. The PDF sat there, like a relic from a Daniel Tran, who believed in sleepless nights, and James's were family. Promises, but it was real. U.S. Patent No. 10-something, titled Method for Dynamic Predictive Load Distribution in Synchronous Modular Environments. Nexus's Holy Grail, my Frankenstein, and the signature, mine alone. Daniel Tran, not the company, not James, because I filed it as an individual, after a tech conference in Portland. I remembered that night, a senior Nexus architect, drunk, sprawled on a beanbag, muttering no one bothers filing patents, legal's a graveyard. I nodded, smiled, then went home, spent all Sunday on the USPTO website, while James slacked the team about toxic sprint velocities. They never knew. For 6 years, I sat on this secret, not strategically, but because I forgot. Life got in the way, burnout, manipulative quarterly reviews. But that signature, on the patent, was now a blade at Nexus's throat, ready to cut. I closed the laptop, heart racing, but mind clear. The code was mine, and the patent proved it. Nexus didn't own it, but someone else might want it, especially Orion Tech, the rival in Bellevue, hungry for Nexus's tech. I thought of James flaunting my system to investors, calling it in-house innovation, while I fixed bugs in the back row. The next morning, I brought the hard drive to the office, hidden in my backpack like a bomb. Tina, the young engineer, greeted me at the coffee machine, calling me mentor as usual. "Did you see James's conference talk last week?" she asked, eyes bright. "Our system's so cool, my system, not ours." I nodded, swallowing bitterness. Mark, the HR guy, passed by, his usual guilty look. Back home, I told Sarah. She sat across, holding her Fin coffee, listening. "If it's yours, Daniel," she said, voice firm, "take it back." I looked at her, then at Ethan outside, shooting hoops alone. I thought of the years Nexus stole, time, effort, self-respect. The patent wasn't just a PDF, it was proof I built something great, and Nexus, with James's laugh, didn't deserve it. I opened my laptop, searching for Orion Tech. An old friend, Rachel Lee, worked there. Maybe she'd want to hear about this patent. I didn't know the next step, but the fire in me, sparked by James's laugh, was now ablaze, and I wouldn't let it die. At 47, I didn't act impulsively. I needed a plan, and it had to be airtight. I started on a Friday night, with Sarah and Ethan asleep. In the living room, Seattle's lights flickering outside, I opened my old HP laptop, one I hadn't thrown out. To dodge Nexus's monitoring software, I renamed it Office Printer, and routed all connections through a Toronto VPN. I created an AWS account, under a fake name, borrowed from an old friend, unrelated to Nexus. Every step was calculated, like debugging a system at 3 a.m. I left no trace for James or his security team. I began rebuilding the dynamic load system prototype. The machine I'd built during sleepless weeks in a Capitol Hill apartment, where musty air mixed with startup dreams. The original code was on the hard drive, with Git logs and commits I never shared with Nexus. I worked through the night, pausing only to brew Fin coffee, its aroma reminding me of mornings. Sarah tried pulling me from my desk. Each line I wrote was a reminder. This was mine, not James's, not Nexus's. I added 3 new features, upgrades Orion Tech and Bellevue would salivate over. Every time James's Slack pinged, an emoji thumbs up, or an article about top engineers who know their place, my fingers typed faster. I contacted Rachel Lee, an old Microsoft colleague, now at Orion Tech. "Rachel," I messaged via Signal, "I've got something you need to see. A patent, exclusive, and Nexus is using it illegally." She replied instantly. "Send details, Daniel. If it's real, we'll make them cry." I smiled, the first time in weeks. Rachel wasn't one for empty talk. I prepared a zip file, original code, DevOps logs, and the patent PDF. I checked it 3 times, ensuring no gaps for Nexus to trace. At the office, I kept up appearances. Tina still called me mentor, but her eyes now held pity. "You okay, Daniel?" she asked by the coffee machine. James was showing off the system at another conference. I nodded, swallowing bitterness. My system, not his. Mark, the HR guy, passed by, whispering, "I know you deserve better, Daniel, but you know James." He trailed off, but I got it. No one dared challenge James, no one but me. I thought of the past years, burnout, James openly taking credit. Once, in a team meeting, he presented my system diagram, calling it leadership's work. I sat in the back, fixing bugs on my laptop, while the team clapped. He didn't even glance at me. Those memories, like gasoline on the fire inside me, made me work faster. By Wednesday, I had a full prototype. By Thursday, an MVP smooth, optimized, ready for Orion Tech. I didn't sleep that night. In the living room, I stared at my laptop, its screen glow on my face. The patent, code and plan were my chance to reclaim what Nexus stole, not just effort, but self-respect. I thought of James, his contemptuous laugh, calling me backbone like an insult. He wouldn't laugh anymore, not when I was done. I clicked, sending Rachel an email. Monday, 10 a.m., Bellevue. I'm bringing everything. I closed the laptop, looked out the window. Seattle's streetlights flickered, like they were in on it. I walked into Orion Tech's office, in Bellevue, a short drive from downtown Seattle, across the 520 bridge. The glass building gleamed under rare sunlight, a stark contrast to Nexus Innovations' stuffy Belltown office. Rachel Lee, my old Microsoft friend, had set up this meeting, and I brought everything: a hard drive, with the original code, DevOps logs, Git commit chains, and the patent PDF, bearing my name. Daniel Tran, not Nexus, not James Carter. This wasn't just a meeting. It was the first step to taking back what I'd lost over 6 years of exploitation. Claire Morgan, Orion Tech's VP of Engineering, greeted me in a meeting room with windows overlooking Lake Washington. Around 50, short silver-dyed hair, her sharp eyes left no room for small talk. "Daniel," she said, her voice dry. "Rachel says you've got something worth seeing. Show me." I slid the hard drive across the glass table, like it was a grenade, with the pin pulled. "Not just worth seeing," I said, "it's running. For 6 years, Nexus has built their entire cloud system on my code, without rights." Claire didn't blink. She plugged in the drive, opened the patent PDF, US patent number 10-something, method for dynamic predictive load distribution. She skimmed, pausing at my signature. "For real?" she asked. One eyebrow raised. I nodded, opened my laptop, still office printer, routed through a Toronto VPN, and laid out the evidence. Git commit chains from my early Capitol Hill days, DevOps logs, tracking every module I deployed, and a public Nexus blog, carelessly bragging about in-house architecture that was actually mine. "They have no license," I said. "They didn't know I held the patent, and I've got everything to prove it." Claire looked interested. She tapped her pen on her lip, eyes glued to the screen. "You know, Daniel," she said, "if we do this, it's war." I shrugged. "They already started it," I replied. "They just laughed too loud to hear the first shot." She gave a small laugh, not James's mocking sneer, but the laugh of someone holding a strong hand. "Poetic," she said, sliding a stack of papers across the table. "Sign the NDA." "We're in." 10 minutes later, I signed NDAs thick enough to choke a deer. Claire called in the legal team, and in 2 hours, they dissected my evidence, confirming 12 copyright violations in Nexus's public documents. I sat there, a strange feeling rising. For the first time in 6 years, I was respected, not just a cog in James's machine. Claire looked at me, said, "If you're right, Daniel, Nexus won't know what hit them." Driving back on I-5, I felt lighter, like Seattle had finally stopped raining. I stopped at Pike Place, grabbed a Starbucks coffee, not because I needed it, but to savor the moment. At home, I told Sarah. She sat across, holding her Finn coffee, eyes shining. "They see you, Daniel," she said. "Not just the code, but you." I nodded, voice catching. "For the first time, Sarah, someone really sees me." I opened my laptop, checked the prototype I'd sent Rachel, version 2.1, clean, optimized, with 3 new features Nexus never dreamed of. I sent Rachel a final email. ready. When Orion's legal team is set, so am I. I'd lit the fuse, and now the fire was catching. After the meeting with Claire Morgan at Orion Tech, I knew Nexus Innovations couldn't see this blow coming. The next morning, in my living room, Seattle's lights flickering through the window, an email from Orion arrived. Copyright infringement notice sent. Brace for response. I opened my laptop, office printer still on the Toronto VPN, and saw the official email to Nexus, subject copyright violation and required action. Attached was a PDF, signed by me, Daniel Tran, patent holder, with Orion's legal warning. Your company is operating production software in violation of intellectual property rights. Please respond within 48 hours to negotiate licensing terms. Failure to do so will result in legal action and a cease and desist order for the entire platform. I pictured James Carter, sipping oat milk latte in the Belltown office, opening this email. He probably spat coffee across his desk when he saw my signature. I didn't hear the scream, but I felt it, an invisible earthquake, shaking the empire he built on my back. Within an hour, my Slack account was locked. My calendar was wiped, company email blocked. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree in a crisis. Tina, the young engineer, texted Daniel, "What's going on? Did you really send that?" Mark, the HR guy, called direct. "They're freaking out. James says it's a misunderstanding, but no one buys it." Then from James, a single text, "Vindictive little bastard. You don't know what you've done." "Oh, but I did. I'd just written my resignation in legalese." Nexus called it a misunderstanding. An email from their lawyers hit Orion, starting with, "We believe there's been a mix-up regarding ownership of this codebase." Mix-up? I'd worked unpaid overtime for 6 years, optimizing their system while James vacationed in Hawaii. Mix-up was what they called the times I saved their necks, only to be laughed at when I asked for a raise. Orion fired back like lightning. Claire's legal team sent a reply with a 14-page appendix, API logs, Jenkins pipeline history, and a detailed timeline showing when my code was deployed. Who tried slapping their name on it 6 weeks later. Orion's lead counsel landed the killing blow. Mr. Carter's LinkedIn boasts about the dynamic load balancer. Daniel Tran is the sole inventor. Please explain how someone with no recorded contribution claims authorship of a patented process. Silence. Then noise. Beautiful, chaotic, desperate noise. Tina sent me a Proton mail, attaching a confidential Nexus memo. Subject, Crisis Protocol. Tran, Incident. Highlights scrub all blogs mentioning the core system as proprietary. Purge Slack messages about code attribution. Cancel James's keynote at a Seattle Tech conference. One line read, "Explore urgent countersuit but likelihood of success low. He has the evidence." I printed that line, framed it, hung it above the thin coffee rack in the kitchen. Sarah looked, smirked. "That's art, Daniel." But that wasn't the best part. The night before, I'd quietly uploaded version 2.1 of the system to Orion. Clean, optimized with 3 new features Nexus never imagined. Orion deployed it instantly, in a major client. Global Corp switched platforms to Orion overnight. The next morning, Global Corp posted on LinkedIn, partnering with at Orion Tech. Lower latency, better security, seamless integration. Here's to clean code. The post spread fast. Developers piled in, sharing screenshots, comparing performance. One wrote, "Wait, this looks like Daniel Tran's demo from a Seattle conference years ago." My LinkedIn exploded, connection requests, job offers, posts tagging me as the guy who built the machine and burned the castle down. I thought of the sleepless nights, missing Ethan's birthday to patch bugs for James. Once, during the holidays, I worked remotely while the family celebrated at Sarah's. Ethan asked, "Why doesn't Dad ever take a break?" I didn't answer, because I thought Nexus was family. Now in my living room, I opened my laptop, saw James's email. "Daniel, you're destroying everything. Be rational." Rational. He'd laughed in my face, called me a cog. I didn't reply, but Orion did, with another appendix, this time including Jira ticket screenshots with my name on every breakthrough. Ethan walked in, glanced at the screen. "What's got you so happy?" he asked. I laughed, the first time in weeks. "I'm taking back what's mine," I said. Sarah, behind me, put her hand on my shoulder. And you're doing it damn well, she said. I looked at them, thought of the 6 years Nexus stole. Now with Orion behind me, with my patent, I wasn't just reclaiming code, I was reclaiming myself. I closed the laptop, looked out the window. Seattle's streetlights flickered, cheering me on. James messed with the wrong guy, and now he'd feel the cost, line by line. The fire I'd started burned Nexus Innovations to the ground, and I stood there watching James Carter's empire crumble piece by piece. After Orion Tech's copyright infringement notice, Nexus spiraled into chaos. Their stock dropped 11%, then halted trading. A GeekWire article blew up. Headline: Seattle veteran engineer topples billion-dollar startup with forgotten patent. It juxtaposed a photo of me, with a dry erase marker presenting the system diagram at a tech conference. And James, smug in a keynote, standing before that same diagram, my arrows, my handwriting, even my typo, the Lancer. As Balncer, I printed the article, hung it next to the framed "He has the evidence" memo in the kitchen. Sarah looked, grinned. Your collection's getting prettier, Daniel. But that was just the start. Tina, the young engineer who called me mentor, posted on LinkedIn. I can't work for a company that disrespects someone like Daniel Tran. I'm out. The post went viral, racking up hundreds of shares from other engineers. Mark, the HR guy, sent me a Proton mail with a screenshot of an internal email chain. Subject: urgent termination. James Carter. Reason: gross negligence, reputational damage, failure to disclose patent conflict. I read it 5 times, heart pounding, but steady. For the first time in 6 years, I exhaled without a weight on my chest. Nexus tried to cover up. They scrubbed blogs boasting about in-house architecture, pulled a white paper from last year's tech conference, and canceled James's keynote at Cloud Expo Seattle, a podcast interview with James, where he bragged about our signature load balancer, vanished, replaced by a 404 error. But social media doesn't forgive. A developer posted on LinkedIn a screenshot of my demo from a tech conference years ago, writing, "This is Daniel Tran, not James Carter." The post spread across Seattle, from Pike Place tech groups to Orion Tech's internal forums. I decided to send James a gift. I printed the internal email chain confirming his firing, paired with a screenshot of his old Slack. "We're family, Daniel." I added a handwritten note. "A raise would have been enough, James." I stuffed it all in an envelope, with a USB labeled, "Justice." The next morning, I stood outside Nexus's Belltown office, watching the receptionist hand James the envelope. He stepped out, aged a decade, cheeks hollow, eyes scanning the lobby like a man whose throne had burned. He opened the envelope, read, then looked up, saw me standing there, arms crossed, no smile, no anger, just done. His lips moved, but I didn't hear. Through the glass, I didn't need to. Some endings don't need sound, they just need a witness. At home, I told Sarah and Ethan. Ethan, for the first time in months, looked at me with pride. "You wrecked them, didn't you?" he asked, grinning. Sarah hugged me, whispered, "You took it back, Daniel. Not just the code." I nodded, thinking of the nights I chose Nexus over them. Now I chose family, chose myself. I opened my laptop, saw an email from Rachel Lee. "Orion's ready to move forward. Nexus is crumbling." I closed the laptop, looked out the window. Seattle's streetlights flickered, singing my victory. James picked the wrong guy to laugh at, and now Nexus paid the price. Line by line, lie by lie. Nexus Innovations was gone. James Carter fired, and I, Daniel Tran, 47, stood on the ashes of 6 exploited years, ready to rebuild. Orion Tech welcomed me as a hero, not a cog. I joined as lead architect, spearheading CloudEdge, version 3.0, of the dynamic load balancer, faster, safer. My name on the homepage, Orion's Bellevue office, with windows facing Lake Washington, was where I found belonging, something Nexus never gave me. I started working with a new team, including Kevin, a fresh grad engineer, who told me over coffee, "Your story's why I picked Orion. You proved they can't steal from us forever." I nodded, hiding emotion. He reminded me of myself 20 years ago, leaving Microsoft for James, chasing a startup dream. Now I didn't just code. I mentored, shared, ensured no one on my team got trampled like I did. My story spread across Seattle. At the Seattle Tech Summit, I was invited to speak on intellectual property rights. Orion later announced a scholarship in my name, supporting overlooked engineers, and for the first time, I felt I'd left a legacy. At home, I made up for lost time with Sarah and Ethan. One weekend, I took Ethan to Pike Place, tossing coins into the Rachel pig and watching street performers. "You're different, Dad," Ethan said, his eyes no longer distant. "You look happy." I smiled, arm around his shoulder. Sarah, in the kitchen, brewing Finn coffee, looked at me with the gaze she had when we first married. "You didn't just win, Daniel," she said. "You rebuilt everything." I stood in the lobby of the Four Seasons in downtown Seattle, chandeliers gleaming, the clink of wine glasses mingling with tech industry chatter. This annual tech gala was where giants showed off, but tonight, I wasn't here to boast. I was here to tell my story. Nexus Innovations had collapsed, James Carter was fired, and Orion Tech's Cloud Edge was leading the industry. But as I held my wine glass, I saw him, James, now just a consultant for a small startup, approaching with a forced smile, as if we were still old.com buddies. "Daniel," he said, voice oily, "you won." I tilted my head, looking at him, sunken cheeks, tired eyes, no trace of the man who laughed in my face when I asked for a raise. "This isn't a game, James," I replied. He glanced around, seeing Orion's logo on banners, lanyards, the stage. "I was wrong," he muttered. "Back then, I should have valued you." I sipped my wine, eyes locked on him. "You weren't wrong," I said. "You chose betrayal, and I chose to." He didn't respond, just stood there, smile fading. Kevin, a young Orion engineer, walked up, eyes curious. "Hey Daniel," he said, loud enough for a few heads to turn. "This the guy who mocked your raise request, right?" James paled, stepped back, then vanished into the crowd. I didn't follow. I had a speech to give. 10 minutes later, I stood on stage before 2,000 people, spotlights on me. I didn't talk about revenge or victory. I spoke of reclamation, building what's yours, and making the world catch up. 6 years, I said. I let others steal my code, my time, my self-respect. But I took it back, not with anger, but with a patent and the truth. The crowd went silent, then erupted in applause. I saw Tina in the front row, smiling, and Rachel Lee, who brought me to Orion, nodding from the wings. At home, I opened my laptop. An email arrived, no subject, no greeting, just one line from James. "You think this is over?" I looked at it, smiled, and deleted it. Not over, but I wasn't afraid. I'd burned his empire down, and he had no fight left. Sarah brewed Finn coffee, asked, "You okay?" I nodded. "Better than okay," I said. Ethan, from the living room, shouted, "Dad, you're on GeekWire again." I'd proven everything, with code, with a patent, with myself. A thought sparked, Cloud Edge 4.0. I smiled. The game wasn't over, but this time, I wrote the rules. Daniel Tran's story, a 47-year-old Seattle engineer, mirrors real issues in today's U.S. tech workplace, where unfairness, lack of recognition, and the pressure to balance work and family are common challenges. In the story, Daniel endures 6 years of exploitation by James Carter, mocked for requesting a raise, and robbed of credit for the cloud system he built. Discovering a forgotten patent, and partnering with Orion Tech to reclaim justice shows the power of persistence and understanding intellectual property rights. Daniel's journey, from missing son Ethan's birthday to regaining self-respect, underscores the personal sacrifices many Americans face in competitive fields like tech. His final confrontation at the Four Seasons Gala, and speech about reclaiming value, reflect the U.S. culture of valuing individual justice and accountability. Actively protect your worth and work in the workplace. Like Daniel, many in the U.S. work hard, but are overlooked, especially in tech startups in Seattle or Silicon Valley. Learn to document your work, like Daniel keeping Git logs and a patent, for evidence when needed. Don't shy from seeking legal support or allies, like Daniel with Orion Tech, when facing injustice. Finally, prioritize family and self, as Daniel did reconnecting with Sarah and Ethan. In American culture, where individuals are encouraged to stand up for their rights, knowing your value, and acting decisively, like Daniel at Pike Place, or the Four Seasons, is key to not just surviving, but shining. Subscribe to the channel to follow journeys of justice in the tech world, and support stories like Daniel Tran's. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video at the Seattle Tech Summit.